Japanese tank designers built tanks to meet a very demanding set of operation requirements. Their vehicles would have to fight in hot climate conditions, in mountainous terrain, and in jungles, and would have to take part in amphibious landings. These design requirements gave rise to a number of interesting and innovative vehicles. In the middle of the 19th century, the Meiji Restoration began in Japan. In just a few decades, Japan transformed itself from a technologically backward country to an industrial state with a powerful army and fleet. During this period, Japan also adopted an aggressive foreign policy. By defeating China and then the Russian Empire, the land of the rising sun ensured its supremacy in East Asia and the Western Pacific. When tanks appeared in Europe in 1916, they drew attention of Japanese military officials. Soon, a special committee of the Imperial General Headquarters was established to create Japanese armored forces. In the 1920s, Japan actively purchased and tested foreign tanks. Those tanks were the British Vickers MKC, MKA Whippet, the French Renault FT, and other vehicles. Compared to the Western countries, Japan started developing its own armored vehicles rather late. However, it took less than 10 years for Japanese engineers to progress from the first tanks, the design of which was mainly borrowed from foreign vehicles, to projects that were entirely original. The first Japanese tank was the No. 1 Chi-E. It was developed in 1927 by the tank factory in Osaka. The Chi-E was a two-turret tank equipped with either a 57mm or 70mm gun and 2 machine guns. Its armament was considered poor and its armor was insufficient. This vehicle never entered mass production. Alongside the development of the Chi-E, designers were working on the Type 87 light tank. It did not enter mass production either. However, the designers' time and efforts were not wasted. Basing on the designs of the Type 87 and the British Vickers MKC tanks, the designers developed the Type 89 medium tank, which became the first Japanese armored vehicle to enter mass production. The Type 95 Hago was developed by Mitsubishi in 1935. It had the transmission in the front and the engine at the rear. Total weight amounted to 7.5 tons. The hull armor was 10 to 12 millimeters thick. The vehicle had a single turret that was shifted to the left of the hull center. The Hago was equipped with a 37mm gun and a 6.5mm machine gun. Japanese tankers liked the Hago for its simple design and easy maintenance. However, it had a number of drawbacks. Most tanks had no radio and no coaxial machine gun. Moreover, a great number of hatches and dismountable armor details weakened the armor protection of the hull and turret. In 1936, the Japanese military reviewed its requirements for medium tanks. Accordingly, the engineers of the Imperial Japanese Technical Bureau developed a 10-ton experimental tank, Chi-Ni, while the designers of Mitsubishi created the 15-ton Chi-Ha. The Chi-Ni medium tank could travel at a speed of 30 kilometers per hour. At its rear, it had a so-called tail to facilitate the crossing of ditches and trenches. Sloped armor greatly increased the tank's protection. The crew consisted of 3 members. At first, the Japanese command preferred the Chi-Ni as its principal tank. But when the war with China started, they realized that this lightweight vehicle was outperformed by the better armored Chi-Ha. This vehicle could travel at a speed of 40 kilometers per hour and was equipped with the 57mm Type 97 gun and 2 7.7mm machine guns. The front hull armor was 25 millimeters thick. The riveted hull was composed of rolled armor plates. The Chi-Ha had a conical turret that was shifted to the right of the hull center. A high-speed light tank project resulted in the Type 98 Kan-ni, developed in 1938. It was equipped with a more powerful diesel engine and could reach a maximum speed of 50 kilometers per hour. Modified running gear allowed a decrease in the amount of vibration during motion. Kan-ni was equipped with a new two-man turret, a 37mm gun and a 7.7mm machine gun to its right were mounted into the turret. The Type 98 Kan-ni never entered mass production. Sources vary, but between 20 to 100 vehicles were built in the early 1940s. In the 1940s, after the Battle of Cochlin Gol, an upgraded modification of the Chi-Ha was created, the Shin-Hoto Chi-Ha. This vehicle was equipped with a new turret and a 47mm gun. The gun barrel was 48 calibers long. The Chi-Ha served in various theaters. It fought in China, Singapore, Malaya, and on Guadalcanal. More than 1,000 vehicles were produced through 1942. The Chi-Ha and the Ha-Go were the main Japanese tanks of World War II. In 1940, modernization of the Chi-Ha medium tank began. As a result, the designers developed a new vehicle, the Type 1 Chi-Ha. The most significant difference between the Chi-Ha and its predecessor was its hull design. For the first time in Japan, the hull was welded, not riveted. Durability of the vehicle was significantly increased. Now the front hull armor was 50 millimeters thick, while the side and rear hull armor was 20 millimeters thick. The new turret held 3 crew members. The Chi-Ha was equipped with an upgraded 47mm gun that was developed on the basis of an anti-tank gun. This new vehicle entered mass production in 1941. By the end of the war, a total number of 601 vehicles were built. In 1943, the tank arsenal in Osaka developed a new 75mm gun with a muzzle brake, the Type 3. A shell fired from this gun could penetrate 90mm armor from 100 meters and 65mm armor from 1,000 meters. This gun was mounted onto a new medium tank that entered service under the name Type 3 Chi-Nu. It inherited its design and modules from the Chi-Ha. With 19 tons of weight, it could reach a speed of 39 kilometers per hour. However, compared to the other Japanese production vehicles of that time, the Type 3 Chi-Nu was the most heavily armed tank. A total of 60 vehicles were built by the end of the war. Another late war design, the Type 4 medium tank Chi-To, never entered mass production either. It was much better armored than the Chi-Nu and equipped with a long-barreled 75mm gun that was based on an anti-aircraft gun. By 1944, 5 tanks of this model were built. On the basis of the Type 5 Chi-To, 2 models of the Chi-Ri medium tank were designed. This vehicle was equipped with 2 guns. In one variant, a 75mm gun was mounted in the rotating turret, while a 37mm gun was placed in the front armor plate. In the second variant, the 37mm gun was replaced by a machine gun. After its surrender, Japan stayed away from tank construction for a long time. However, unfolding Cold War forced the United States to supply a limited number of tanks to the Japanese self-defense forces. Starting in 1950, the United States supplied about 250 Shermans, and in 1952, 375 M24 Chafees were supplied to Japan. In 1954, the Japanese self-defense forces launched their own independent tank development projects. New tactical characteristics and specifications were developed to take into account Japan's mountainous terrain. The designers had to build compact and fairly light tanks, which would be delivered to the battlefield on special trucks. Several projects were developed. The first one was the STA-1. According to specifications, it was equipped with a 90mm main gun. It never entered mass production, though. One of the main reasons its development went no further was the gun loading system, which never performed satisfactorily. Further development of the STA-3 and STA-4 stopped in 1961, when the main battle tank Type 61 entered mass production. The Type 61 weighed 35 tons. Main armament was a 90mm rifled gun with a muzzle velocity of about 910 meters per second. Front hull armor was 55mm thick, and the front turret armor was 114mm thick. It could reach a top speed of 45 kilometers per hour. From 1961 through 1975, a total of 560 vehicles were built. In 1964, design work on a new tank, the STB, started. From 1969 through September 1970, the first experimental tank underwent a series of tests. And in October of 1970, the STB-1 was shown in public for the first time at the Japanese Self-Defense Forces Parade. The STB project was further developed until the prototype of the STB-6 entered service under the name Type 74. Let's conclude. Although Japanese tanks never fought in massed formations during World War II, Japan produced a wide range of original and successful armored vehicles. Some models of tanks developed in Japan closer to the end of World War II were comparable with Shermans, Pershings, and T-34s. However, by the late war, Japan lacked the industrial power, resources, and time to continue the mass production of tanks. After 10 years of a forced break, Japan resumed development of their own tanks, and those armored vehicles appeared to be as good as their counterparts in other nations.